See this right here? This is why they want Ibrahim Traore gone. Yeah, this photo too. You see this? Him with Nicolas Maduro? That's why they want Ibrahim Traore gone. While the West, and specifically the United States, has been busy trying to demonize Ibrahim Traore, he's been out here playing chess while the United States and the West is playing checkers. Now we have to remember the way that the United States and the West has been able to take out African leaders is by individualizing them, by keeping them isolated from the rest of the world, especially superpowers that they could potentially ally with and get some type of economic or military partnership that can protect them. And we already know that Ibrahim has successfully created a coalition between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, but a coalition between Maduro in Venezuela and Putin in Russia and Ibrahim in Burkina Faso takes their potential to a different level entirely. Let's talk about it. As you all know, for a couple of years, Burkina Faso has been in a military alliance with Russia, but recently they've been in a resource-based economic alliance, making a deal to help them extract the gold and rare minerals from Burkina Faso. And Russia would simultaneously provide security for the gold that is extracted. And of course, as you know previously, that gold and that infrastructure was almost completely controlled by France and did not benefit the people of Burkina Faso in any way. Now, this infrastructure, the mine this gold is important, but it's not only gold. See, the one thing Ibrahim has shown us is that he understands the importance of diversifying one's economy. Enter Maduro in Venezuela. You see, at the moment, unfortunately, Burkina Faso is completely reliant on oil supplies from outside of the country because as of right now, there are no known oil deposits and they have no way to refine it, even if they did find oil. But you know who has a lot of oil? Venezuela. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Niko, it doesn't matter if Venezuela has a bunch of oil. They have no way to refine it, which is how they've ended up in the situation they're in right now. Skirt! Pump your brakes, play it, partner. Because Venezuela just got done finalizing a deal in which Russia will help provide equipment and help them refine the oil that was once unrefinable due to lack of resources. Which means very shortly, Venezuela will be one of the top producers of oil in the world. So given the diplomatic relationship between Ibrahim and Maduro, and the fact that they had this meeting in Moscow, probably means that Burkina Faso will also benefit from this deal that Russia made with Venezuela, and they will be able to get a stake in that oil. And every time Burkina Faso benefits from any type of economic advancement, the coalition between them, Mali, and Niger also benefits. And the more that specific coalition benefits, the more enticing it becomes to join that coalition from the perspective of other African nations. What we are witnessing is that one man understands the moment that we are in, that we are entering an era of multipolarity. We are in a multipolar world, and they want to take him out now because the more allies he builds, the more his coalition grows, the more difficult it becomes to take him out. Because you can't kill an economy that's diversified. And you can't convince the people to want to overthrow their government that's improved their lives in every way imaginable directly because of the actions of that government. Those meetings were a clear message to the West. You better get with it or get gone. Because it's a new day in Africa and a new day in the global South. And if you don't want to live in the world that we're living in, fine. But this multipolar world is coming. In fact, many would say it's already here. And if you don't want to be a part of it, that's fine. Suffer the consequences. But the rest of us are ready to benefit from the opportunities that come from cooperation instead of imperialism. What is going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning into this live stream episode of For the People podcast. And of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House. We have an exciting show for you today. We're going to be talking about this alleged beef between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Is there some legitimacy to the claims, or is it just another Zionist smokescreen? We're also going to be talking about the South Africans who have been given special privileges, special refugee status to come to the United States. They are on the way. They will be here or will be in the United States shortly. We're going to be talking about that as well. And we're going to talk about this recent clip of Bill Maher that went viral, where he's basically just slandering Palestine in what looks like an attempt to justify the genocide Israel's committing as usual. So, but first, really quick, I do want to say thank you to all of the people who've been showing love from hosting, from when I hosted Moats last week, the Mother of All Talk Shows for George Galloway. Really appreciate it. I had a great time. His team is awesome. And I want to say once again, of course, that I appreciate George for giving me the opportunity to host Moats, because it was fun. It was a great time. It was a lot of moving parts, man. There's a lot that goes on in the background for Moats. And I got to give credit where credit is due. His production team is amazing. And George himself being able to maintain everything he does, including that show, and while traveling the world and doing his journalism, is pretty impressive. So before we get this show on the road, I would like to introduce a special guest. Many of you know him from Due Dissidence. Some of you, a lot of you, probably know him from the Jimmy Dore Show. A lot of you probably know him from some of the on the ground work that he's done that's going viral on both Twitter and YouTube. Let's introduce to the show for the very first time, Russ. My man Russ. What's going on, bro?
Hey, what's up, Niko? How are things down there in Brazil?
Definitely better than the United States. I could probably tell you that. It's probably like I said, my kid went to school today and I didn't have to worry about somebody shooting it up because they had a bad day. So, it's good.
I got a friend of mine. She lived here for a while. She wants to come over from Australia. I said, why? Why do you want to come here? Why would you do that?
In her defense,
it's like taking a 25-hour flight to go see a circus.
I mean, depends what kind of circus we talk about. And the U.S. is an entertainer kind of circus, so I guess, yeah. But a lot of Australians do not like living in Australia. I had an Australian friend who I asked her, like, why would you leave Australia in healthcare? And she's like, to be honest, like the United States, she came to realize isn't the best, but like Australia is getting pretty bad itself. And she's like, the healthcare damn near isn't worth all the other nonsense you have to deal with there. And she said it's boring, basically. Is what she said.
A lot of them feel like it's boring, and because they're so far away from everything, Australians, when they travel, they do the grand tour. They go out. They're never going one place. They're going to New York. They're going to LA. Then they're going to Japan. Then they're going to China. They're out for like a month, 2 months when they leave.
Yeah, she was out for 2 years.
Yeah,
she literally was like, I was like, hold up.
Yep.
I was like, damn, 2 years? Are you gonna go back home? She's like, yeah, probably eventually. I gotta go back home at some point. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, but I can't blame him. But no, it's the opposite. Like I said, it's the opposite. When I leave Brazil, I get immediate depression, bro. I can't even really explain it. I never. So the first time I had to go back home and visit when I left Rio, it was like when you cross into the barrier of the United States, when you cross the border, it's like the energy just gets darker. There's something that like I don't. If you've traveled outside of the country and been back, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. And I can't explain it, but everybody knows when I say it. People are like, yeah, no, it's definitely something. Maybe it's 5G. I don't know.
No, it's that you can't see how dirty the water is till you get out of the pool. As soon as you leave the United States, the energy is better. It's just like a cleaner energy, like that tension that you just get accustomed to living here. It's not like that most places, man. People don't relate to each other in such a tense, adversarial way. Most places you go.
Yep. All the Brazilians, they say that the people of the US are estão fechados. Like they're very closed off, very individualized. You don't get like a familial feeling that you would get if you were like in a place like Brazil or most of Latin America. I would say in a lot of countries even. Some of them say they feel the same way about a lot of different parts of Europe, not like Italy or like even Spain, but like England, they say they get that feeling. Like people are very closed off and they're with their own people. Not, you know what I'm saying? They're like, it's not like a racist vibe. It's just, I got my people and I chill over here and they got their people and they chill over there and we're not really trying to meet new people. So stay over there, please. Basically.
Well, I think the way the United States is set up, the Tao Te Ching was written as advice to the emperor, and it was a theme that it hits over and over again is as the ruler is, so will the people be. If the ruler lies, the people will lie. If the ruler steals, the people will steal. So, what is your society telling you when, if you get sick, they're going to, at best, take everything you own and at worst, just let you die? That's going to turn
Yeah.
you into a person who's just constantly looking to fight, take what they can, protect what they have, because that's the message that you're getting. If you're Michael Moore did Bowling for Columbine. And one of
Hmm.
the things he really dwelled on, focused on was, in Canada, they have as many guns as we do, at least at that time when he made the movie, and yet they don't have these shootings. To me, that's the answer
Mm.
because they're not getting the same signal from their government that you're on your own in a world of all against all. So they're not as inclined towards that kind of violence against the people around them.
That's very interesting because there are so many people that point to like Japan, where I think all guns are outlawed, and they're like, "Oh, well, look at the level of low level of violent crime they have because they don't have guns." I've never actually heard anybody make the Canada argument. They got a lot of guns, and you don't
Right.
see anywhere near the level of violence committed in Canada that you see in the United. I don't think you see that damn near in any other part of the world, like at least a part any other part of the first world. Maybe in developing nations,
No,
and
no.
they have various reasons as to why that is, and some people would argue that it's the first world country's fault that those developing nations have the violence that they have. So let me check out these super chats real quick. Eric Husso, what's going on, man? Love to see my favorite post-duopoly voices together in class solidarity. Yeah, man, it's been I
What's
can't
up,
believe it's
Eric?
taking this long. How annoying is it for the left always being blamed for liberal? Oh, the left always
Yeah,
being blamed for liberal
yeah.
nonsense. Oh man, we could do a whole show on that.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
By
yeah.
itself. Super Seamster Sewing Show, cold interview, you and Nick on Moats, Bakerfield, CA. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It was like I said, it was a great time. I want to get to this alleged beef between Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Allegedly, they're on the outs with each other. There are a few reasons as to why people believe that, but I wanted to get your take on that first before I dive into some of the reasons people have been talking about online.
Oh, I thought we had a clip.
No. I got a couple things I just want to hear your. I'm sure you're unfortunately chronically online like myself, so I just wanted to get your quick take on that before I dive into some of the stuff that we've been seeing.
I'm not taking it very seriously. I mean, Trump literally danced like a bear on a unicycle in front of a bank of Israeli flags, bragging to an audience about how quickly he got things done for the Adelsons. You really
Yeah,
think that all of a sudden he's going to assert some kind of independence? The rumors that he hung up on him, yeah. I mean,
I believe that.
Netanyahu's an asshole. Who likes Netanyahu? Who likes that guy?
Like literally no one. Yeah, that's true.
Right. Trump has a short fuse. Yeah, that probably happened. I would liken this though, like why are we hearing about it? For the same reason that we heard the Biden White House put out these kinds of rumors too, if you recall. Oh yeah, no,
Mm,
Biden has had it with Netanyahu. It's giving them cover for the fact that they're giving Israel everything that they want. That they Trump, whatever his failings, he's pretty politically savvy. I've said this over and over and over again. I've been to MAGA rallies. I've been to Trump events. I went to what we call Braga, the Bronx MAGA rally, and yeah, man, most of the MAGA people, they don't like this Zionism shit. They go
yeah, that's
along with
true.
it because the boss tells them they have to go along with it. And the voices are getting louder and louder from that coalition, like Marjorie Taylor Greene coming out and saying, why are we supporting Israel? Tucker Carlson, who has a lot of clout. The fact that conservative media is killing it right now and the Daily Wire is going bankrupt tells you a
Yeah.
lot about how that base really feels about Zionism. So I would say, yeah, this probably happened, but why are you hearing about it? They're trying to appease that rumbling that they're seeing growing in the MAGA base about Trump's subservience to Netanyahu.
So I don't know if I would classify subservience necessarily to Netanyahu. I do believe that he is subservient to Israel, beyond anything else, because I feel like Bibi at some point forgot that he is subservient even to Zionism, the ultimate goal of Zionism in Israel. He at some point began to feel like he is Israel, that he is Zionism. And I feel like that's actually probably been his biggest mistake thus far. Now I can see why some people would get the idea that he and Netanyahu are on the outs, but I don't know if people are conflating this idea that they're on the outs or confusing it rather with Trump is realizing that he doesn't run the show, that the United States doesn't have as much military influence that we once had. He can't just come in there, wave a stick, and expect things to go his way, especially as these other coalitions around the world are beginning to build up, and we don't have an answer for it at the moment. So, for example, some people are mentioning the fact that the B-2s, it's the stealth B-2 bombers that were in Diego Costa, that were basically open threat to Iran. That's basically what they were there for. They're pulling out. They pulled out all of them out of nowhere. So we know that Iran and Israel they've been kind of on the outs, and Israel is openly threatening Iran as we speak. I mean, every day is when there's a new threat from Israel to Iran, but yet and still knowing that Trump pulled out the B-2s, and this is all within the time frame of firing Mike Waltz, the threats coming from Bibi to Iran, and Iran saying that they're going to retaliate, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the situation with Yemen, which is one of the strangest situations that I have ever seen, because Trump comes out and says, we're not going to attack Yemen anymore because the Houthis have agreed that they're not going to attack us or any other ships coming in. Well, they haven't attacked any U.S. naval vessels, so it would only be commercial ships. But Yemen came out and was like, we have made no such agreement. We will continue bombing the shit out of y'all, or out of the commercial ships. And matter of fact, hold on, let me see if I can put. Yeah, I got a clip. Not only are they going to keep the blockade on the sea, but they're going to blockade through the air. That's what they said. Hold on, I got a clip right here.
When did that come out? I didn't even see that.
It was around the time that they attacked the Ben Gurion airport. We posted on Hotspot, actually. It was from May 10th. So this is after that conversation that Trump came out and was like kind of almost gracious towards the Houthis, saying that they're brave and they're strong fighters. We really beat them down. We really did, but they're just really, really good. I'm like, I feel like, I don't know if like you're trying to, this a compliment? Like how they
very tough negotiators.
Yeah, they're very tough negotiators. They took a beating. They really took a pounding. I'm like, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like, yeah, the people of Yemen did, but not the actual Houthis. It was just the problem, right? So this is what
الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية عملية عسكرية نوعية استهدفت مطار اللد المسمى إسرائيليا مطار بن غوريون في منطقة يافا المحتلة، وذلك بصاروخ باليستي فرط صوتي، وقد حقق هدفه بنجاح بفضل الله، وقد فشلت المنظومات الاعتراضية في التصدي له، وتسبب في هروع ملايين الصهاينة المحتلين إلى الملاجئ وتوقف حركة المطار قرابة الساعة. ونفذ سلاح الجو المسير في القوات المسلحة اليمنية عملية عسكرية استهدفت هدفا حيويا للعدو الإسرائيلي في منطقة يافا المحتلة، وذلك بطائرة مسيرة نوع يافا. تجدد القوات المسلحة اليمنية تحذيرها للشركات التي لم تستجب بعد لقرار الحظر بأن عليها سرعة وقف رحلاتها الجوية إلى فلسطين المحتلة كما فعلت بقية الشركات الأخرى. إن قرار حظر الملاحة الجوية إلى مطارات فلسطين المحتلة وكذلك حظر مرور السفن الإسرائيلية في البحرين الأحمر والعربي بالإضافة إلى العمليات الإسنادية مستمر حتى وقف العدوان على غزة ورفع الحصار عنها.
So first of all, let me just say that is an intense guy. That man is a very. I can't blame him, man. It's an intense situation, but that boy, every time he talks, boy, he is dead ass serious. So what? Basically, he said, Trump said that he's not going to attack commercial vehicles, or that the Houthis aren't going to attack more commercial ships. And this guy's like, nah, bro, not only we're attacking commercial ships, but we attacking everybody. You fly through the air, you come through the sea, we're going after you. So why would Trump say that? Why was and I confirmed, I thought I was crazy, but no, I confirmed the naval fleets have been leaving the Red Sea. So he's not just talking, like Trump wasn't just talking. He actually does plan on stopping bombing Yemen. So why did he say that Yemen plans on stopping commercial ships if they're not planning on it? So do you get why? So you get why people, I think, are saying like, damn, did Bibi really piss off Trump that much that he's like basically giving the middle finger to all the policies in our military alliance?
All right, I have a theory about Trump.
I want to hear
it. Okay, so I think it was Woodward. Yeah, it was Woodward. He did a book early in Trump's first term. And Woodward, yeah, man, he's Libby, but I do trust his facts in his reporting. He's coming out of the old school kind of journalism, fact check everything and triple check your sources. I trust him in terms of the technicalities of reporting. So when he says this happened, I believe it happened. He gives a very, very revealing account of Trump when he first became president, having to call military families about the deaths of their kids and being really bothered by it. I think what that tells you is somebody who has not aspired to be in politics their entire lives, has not come up through politics, has not gone through the process of giving away all the pieces of your soul and moral compass that you have to give away to become the president. He kind of came in through a side door. Yeah. It's one thing to be a New York real estate douchebag. It is another thing to be the level of evil that is expected of the president of the United States. I think that level of, it's one thing to call up people and say, yeah, I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave with your 3 kids from our property by the end of the month. That's one thing. To be calling people up being like your kid is dead. I think Trump really legitimately does not like war. I think he's squeamish about it. I think
which is why he's so obsessed with drone strikes rather than actual sending troops on the ground.
Yeah, I think he just the life he lived before he got into politics did not prepare him for the level of moral responsibility involved, not in screwing a bunch of general contractors as he was wont to do in his business life, but causing the death of millions of people. I don't think he's comfortable being put in that position. I also think philosophically, if you look at the way he looks at things, it's very 20th century, man. Like America is a country, and why are we involved with all these things and all these people? We should just make merchandise and schmatas and sell things at 5 and dime stores. He has this very 1955 vision of how the economy should work and how the world should be. It's a wonderful life. He wants everything to look like that in his mind. I think he legitimately feels like war is wasteful. Why are we involved in these places? I do think that's his first instinct. So does he resent Netanyahu and other forces trying to drag us into more involvement overseas? Yeah, I think so. That's why, both me and Keaton going into the election, of course, we didn't endorse either major candidate. But we said, yeah, man, gun to your head. You'd have to go for Trump because there's one empty bullet in the Russian roulette chamber with Trump.
Yeah.
With Harris, man, the deep state's just going full bore into World War III. So this is an example of it. Him pulling these ships out. Would that have happened under Harris? No way. I don't think so.
No, it would have been. No, I mean, we know because Joe Biden tried to create a coalition of other countries to use their navies in conjunction with ours to attack the Houthis. So we know it wouldn't have happened. If anything, she would have tried to ramp it up. Now, it wasn't as successful because those other countries were a little bit smarter. They were like, yeah, see, here's the thing. Nah, y'all can handle that yourselves. Which is crazy because in reality, the beef between Yemen and Israel and all the attacks from the Houthis on those commercial liners, that doesn't really affect the United States all that much, if at all. It actually affects Europe, affects the companies from there, and obviously it affects Israel. So us getting involved really only, I mean, we saw with the text, they were like, man, we're just kind of bailing out Europe once again. They said it, not me. They were like, yeah, we're just bailing out Europe. But when it was time to build a coalition to go after the Houthis in the Red Sea to let their commercial liners through, they were like, nah, we're good. So it's like, why are we doing it? It's obviously because of Israel, but
yeah. I think Israel, it's hard to see it now. I think Israel as a country is done. The question is, are there going to be any Palestinians left to enjoy that ultimate victory? Like, that's the horror of it. Who's going to,
or at least Palestinians in Palestine, because there's a bunch of them in Jordan, but I doubt they're leaving to go back to Palestine.
There will be some Palestinian people, but as a mass population with a territory, is that going to outlast Israel? But if you look at what's happening in terms of the brain drain, in terms of the collapse of their businesses, in terms of bankrupted ports, in terms of its international reputation, which it is never going to recover. In the end, the truth will out. In the end, the Zionists are already losing control of the narrative. They are not going to be able to wield the kinds of levers of power forever that they wield now. And in the end, what's happening now is going to be remembered by history as one of the great world historical crimes against humanity. And the country responsible for it is not going to be able to survive that in its current form. Israel, as the apartheid state that it is not going to last.
It can't.
It's doing just horrible acts against the Palestinian people while it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to me because, like I always say, I feel like there were people who they fell into really, I guess, 3 categories. They were on the complete and total wrong side of history, right? Like they believed everything that the Zionist propagandists put out, but it was because they were ignorant and literally they never got any information from the other side. It was damn near like you couldn't receive it. There was actually a point on when I first started YouTube, when I tried to put something out about Palestine, it was immediately demonetized or blocked.
Really?
And and I didn't. I'm like, what the?
How many years ago was that?
2014, 2015.
Wow.
And I was kind of confused.
Wow.
Yeah, bro. Like I remember I tried to put something out about Soros. This is around the time I found out Soros was Jewish. I didn't even know Soros was Jewish at the time, which is kind of crazy. I know, but I just never knew. And they're like, no, can't. They just cut it off. Wow. I tried to put something out about Rothschild and his involvement in the founding of Israel. That got demonetized and then eventually taken down. Yeah, bro. I was like, what the?
Dude,
what is going on?
There's video of his descendant proudly talking about that.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to talk about it if you're criticizing him. So, you're not allowed to talk. Come on, y'all don't find this a little bit suspicious? Like, it's kind of weird, ain't it? Like the Rothschilds have been responsible for so many wars and for like 200 years of wars in Europe, and then out of nowhere, Hitler comes around and he gets to just blame Jewish people in general. But it seems like it was actually because of one Jewish guy, and then he was able to kind of like permeate that throughout society as like trying to blame all of them,
right?
Like because of him. And then the one thing that people would argue that Rothschild wanted, and not just Rothschild, but a lot of Zionists obviously at the time wanted, was Israel. And then the guy responsible for almost every major war in Europe in history basically was also responsible for the founding of Europe. It even got rewarded with his own street, the main street in Tel Aviv. And everybody was like, that's anti-Semitic. I was like, no, that's actually a factual thing. These are all factual things. But
that's that's something that me and Keaton always bring up. All of this, when you suppress speech like this, It's not really doing anything to combat the trope that there's a secret cabal of Jews controlling the
Yeah,
flow of information in the world. Like it doesn't do any good to
it
not
does the
allow
opposite.
people to talk about. It does the opposite, to not talk about like the Havara Agreement, to not allow
Yeah.
people to talk about things like that, or to dismiss it, or to minimize it.
Bro, you know how much I found out because like I was like disallowed from or something got maybe demonetized or taken off my. I was like, why is this getting taken down? I did not know this was that big of a deal, and then
Yeah,
I kept
yeah.
doing more research, and I'm like, oh,
I'm
okay,
surprised because back then, though, that's kind of like the last days of the Wild West of YouTube. So I'm
yeah.
surprised they did that back then, even that they were demonetizing it.
I was just somebody said it was because of my thumbnails. It was giving off like it triggered the algorithm to then go
Mm.
to then have them look at my video, and then they
Yeah,
decided. And so like they're like, yeah, if you do
interesting.
any coverage of Palestine, you have to actually change the thumbnail. I was like, what? That's kind of weird. I had no idea that the media was this bot. And my ex was Palestinian. She was the one who told me in like 2011, 2012 how biased the media was against Palestine. I'm like, really? But if y'all are getting slaughtered like that and like literally living through an apartheid, why wouldn't they cover it? She was like, they always lie about war and they lie about Arabs and who's responsible for what. She was like, they lied about Afghanistan. And
Oh,
you know that?
yeah.
I was like, yeah. She's like, they lied about Iraq. I was like, yeah. She's like, they even lied about where they like, we supposedly this was the war in Afghanistan was about 9/11 and they went to Afghanistan, but we don't really know why they went there because Osama bin Laden was actually from the Saudi Arabian royal family, so they should have probably started asking them. They never even thought about going into Saudi Arabia to go kick their door down, and somehow he ends up found allegedly in Pakistan. I was like, oh yeah. She was like, so why the hell would they be telling the truth about Israel and Palestine? I'm like, oh, yeah, actually, when you put it like that, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense as to why they would be protecting an apartheid state. So, but the other category I was going to say that people fell in was like they just didn't care or they didn't know. And it sucks that it took a genocide for people to finally realize, like, oh shit, there's a Holocaust happening right in front of our eyes.
Oh, yeah.
There's an like we thought apartheid was over when South Africa officially ended it, but no, it's still happening. So
Well,
it's
October 7th really forced a lot of contradictions out into the open. The first thing I wrote about it right after October 7th, I wrote an article about the Frankenstein monster of critical theory and the way it was turning back now on its creators. Because for decades, in my opinion, academia turned the focus of social justice toward examining crimes of history and a very theoretical framework that was no real threat to power, right? Turn all the rage on crimes of the past and slavery and sins of the past, which with almost no discussion of slavery now. There are more slaves on the earth today than there have ever been, but never directing that, see these crimes of the past that we hate. Well, now we have to, in the present, take action. No, nothing like that, only in regards to microaggressions, manners, things that don't fuck with the money, things that don't fuck with the power. Now, you've been telling them for decades, you've been rearing them on France Fanon and post-colonial theory and telling them how enlightened they are and how enlightened these institutions of power have become, how we've moved past that. And now you have in broad daylight a settler colonial state committing exactly the kind of apartheid system and the kind of genocidal intent against a brown population that you've been using as a shield for your own actions for decades. And now they come out and protest it and demand that you divest from the country responsible. And all of a sudden, you call in the cops to crack their heads and you start expelling and suspending them. It just revealed what a lie that entire project was.
Not the academic is like the academics were the ones telling us to be outraged. It was the academics telling us to be outraged at what was, and then it was like the academics calling the cops to crack the heads of the students. They told to be outraged.
Exactly. They only wanted the performative element of what they were teaching. When these kids tried to put it into action, when they actually tried to apply post-colonial theory to a current event, they saw the real face of power. And it is, in a lot of ways, very similar to what happened in the Vietnam era. Because remember, part of why the hippies and the yippies were so disillusioned was that post-World War II, they were really reared on the idea that America had fought the Nazis, which was this horrible racist regime, right? They had been reared on the idea that America is good and that America fights good wars and that the Nazis and the Axis are bad. They fight bad wars. And then when Vietnam happened and they started looking at race in the country as something that was in the present, it was very shattering to the way what they had been brought up to believe America was. These kids who grew up watching Davy Crockett on TV, right? America's the good guys, and none of that was true. I think October 7th, in a lot of ways, was that moment for Gen Z, where they realized everything they'd been taught about what America was a lie.
Yeah, even some millennials. I would say even some some of the older, perhaps millennials.
Yeah, sure.
Who kind of still believed in like the World War II being this great war. When I tell people, like, obviously the United States didn't even enter until it was like late, and then like they didn't even really step foot in Europe to fight a Nazi until like 2 years after that. Right. They were in Africa protecting British colonies. Like people didn't even realize that. And I'm like, yeah, like we really didn't do shit. We dropped some bombs and took all the credit. It's really American, I guess, when you think about it. Let me just super chat real quick. Wanda USA, Trump doesn't want to contact MAGA about their loved ones dying for a MAGA war. Yeah, that's basically it. Pee Wee Trump, I meant to do that. Yeah. Hey,
we
to this day,
I soundboard.
Really?
Yeah.
Bro, to this day, I still believe he's faking the Soleimani assassination. Like, I feel like he didn't actually greenlight it. It was greenlighted in his sleep behind closed doors, and he had to wake up one morning and find out. He had to explain why we assassinated a military leader from Iran. And you can tell, if you ever go back and watch his interviews and the press conference right after, that man just rambling his ass off and has no idea what he's talking about. I'm like, holy shit, did they do this behind his back? And he has to pretend like he's in control? Because that's basically what it looks like.
I mean, to be fair, he's very often just rambling his ass off.
Okay, that's also fair. That's also very fair.
Way quite a lot.
Yeah, it was just weird because he was like, when he kept saying like this guy's like one of the biggest promoters of terrorism in the region, and he helps terrorists. I'm like, hold on, isn't this dude known for like killing terrorists? Like he's like literally like the guy for taking out terrorists, and he's like, yeah, this dude's a terrorist. I'm just like, I feel like he was not prepped for this situation. So because at least, you know, when he rambles or whenever he is being politically savvy, like you said, because he does have a level of political savviness to him when it comes to PR. And that interview just reeked of, I'm finding out about this today. And I was not prepared for this, but I also cannot let my constituency know like that I'm not in control. Because if they figure that out, then that's a whole different problem that he wasn't ready to deal with at the time. Eric Husseau, criticism of Israel is like attacking someone's Christian identity. I can't get through to them. Yeah, that is kind of true. I mean, I attack Christian identity all the time. I actually have a theory out here in Brazil. Whenever there's a lot of people who will say like, "Oh, eu sou mulher de igreja," like I'm a girl or a woman who's like, "I'm from the church. I'm a church girl." Bro, I run the other direction always. I just assume the worst, bro. The stories that I hear, even in my wife's own family, from people who claim that they go to the church all the time. I'm like, so when you say they go to church all the time, or they're a woman of the church, how often? You talking about like 3-4 times a week? Like, yeah, I said, oh yeah, nah, run the other way. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, because that is an ecosystem, a toxic ecosystem, and they go there to hide a lot of the times. They go there to hide from society who otherwise would probably rightfully judge them for the stuff that they do. And they know that everybody else in that ecosystem of the church, they have things to hide too. So they all kind of keep quiet and keep it within themselves. And I mean, I know a dude who got cheated on 2-3 times by a woman who cheated on a guy while he was working with somebody in the church. And he didn't find out about it from members of the church, even though the church members knew about it. Bro, because they can't, because what if somebody spills your tea?
Believe it or not, I was in business for a few years in Harlem with a Pentecostal church. And my partner was like an old theater guy who had built a black box theater in their building. And he asked me to come in as a partner because he didn't know how to run it as a business. And he told me as soon as I came in, the most dishonest, backstabbing people you're ever going to meet are the people in the church. In the end, that whole thing collapsed because the people in the church all turned on each other and forced the pastor out. And then they wanted 4 times the money from us. Like it was, man.
Bro, I went to a Korean church for 10 years. And like, basically when I became a young adult, like 23, 24 years old, that's when I left. It's because like when our pastor got forced out, it was kind of some bullshit. The reason that they forced him out, they claimed it was because of something that he had did that was unethical, but really it was like he wouldn't run the church in the way that some of the elders wanted. And so they forced him out. And like, I had to watch his daughters go through all this trauma because they made all these friends because they were raised in the church with us. And they made all these friends. And now, you know, all their parents, they can't go to their friend's house because all their parents are talking bad about now because it's a Korean church. So now they got to talk bad about the daughters too. Now their thoughts and they're doing all this other, like they're not like that at all. But they had to move. They'd like move across the country. It was super sad. I'm like, yo, this is ridiculous. And my youth pastor asked me why didn't I come back. I'm like, yo, I'm not gonna lie to you. I can't get down with this institution. Like, and I can't get down with the fact that there are good people who are in it, but like they all allowed it to happen. Like y'all allowed this to happen because y'all didn't want to rock the boat. Couldn't get down with it. So
the leadership were all greedy and power hungry. And the pastor they pushed out, he was a very nice guy. And then people came in who just had money in their eyes.
Same thing happened with us. The pastor that pastor was really dope, especially for me because obviously being a black guy at a Korean church was a very unique experience, especially in the beginning. Yeah. And you know, I didn't really feel like I accepted at first. And this Korean pastor who barely spoke any English always sought me out whenever I went. Always was checking in on me. Always was like, "Oh, how are your grades?" and treating me like all the other kids, and which was really dope because like from my experience with Koreans at that point, older Koreans had not been a positive one just because of the weird relationship between the East Asian community and Black community. So it was a really dope experience. So when they forced him out, I was kind of like really upset by that. I'm like, and no one tried to stop the shit. Like, so I'm like, I rock with everybody. I rock with all my friends still. And we talk, you know, all that good stuff. But I'm like, the institution of the church is just as bad as politics, if not worse, because damn, boy, you can make some money in church. And once money gets involved at that level, politics is just like religion. I always say, like, politics is not really all that different from religion when you really get down to it.
Dude, I always say if prostitution is the world's oldest profession, religion is the world's oldest grift.
Yeah, it's so true. Wanda USA, the U.S. is enslaved. Police are overseers. Rothschilds are Zionists first. Zionists exterminated Jews in Germany. I don't know if they exterminated, but I do know that they got special privileges. I do know that. Tate, what's going on, my brother? Brother Niko, please bring Russell regularly. True human being from Oromia? Oh, Oromia region, Ethiopia. Oh, hopefully, man. Hopefully. Like I said, it's a damn shame that it took this long to get my guy on.
Thank you.
So I want to shift gears really quick to South Africa. So I don't know if you guys have heard, but there are a bunch of immigrants who are about to land from South Africa into the United States after an executive order that Donald Trump signed in February. I thought that it was one of those situations where everybody was kind of playing like, you know, Trump be playing sometimes. He just says shit and does shit. And you're like, he's not really going to follow through with that because the optics of this are a little bit too obvious, a little bit too problematic and too easy to debunk. Yeah, it's one of those situations where he just kind of said, fuck it, man. I'm just going to just do the thing, man. I'm just going to do the preferential white guy thing. I really can't believe it, but that's what's happening. So the explanation as to why this is even a priority is like it might be worse than the actual executive order itself. But listen to the explanation.
The president has shown support for South African refugees that are coming to the United States next week. Can you talk about what these refugees are fleeing and why this is a priority for the administration?
Well, the president has actually signed an executive order on that matter. My office can get it back to you, Michael. But this group in South Africa has faced racial persecution. In fact, the government there has vowed to take away their farmland they own. And so the president has talked significantly about this. As for further details on refugee claims and asylum claims, I would defer you to the State Department. Sure.
Washington's favorite sugar baby since Dolly Madison, right there,
bro. Racial persecution. Now, what's interesting, he's like, why do we have to use? First of all, it's weird because it sounds like she's not actually familiar with the executive order. She's like, the president signed an executive order on this. Yeah, we know. That's why he's asking the question. Like, we're aware of that. And like, why is it? Because she didn't explain why is it a priority. Why was this even?
Okay, if you look at the women in the Trump administration, they're like pod people. Like, basically, you have to be in the Trump administration as a woman. Preferably, you have to have dyed blonde hair. You have to wear a very prominent cross. If you look at some pictures, it's weird. You have to have a fondness for lavender sports jackets. If you look at Carolyn Levitt and Pam Bondi, it's really like a before and after picture.
There seems to be almost a weight requirement too.
Oh yeah. No, you have to be thin. You have to be thin. Kristi Noem gets away with being a brunette because she killed a dog. That's how she got into the wire there. If you didn't kill a dog, you need to dye that hair blonde.
So there's an article about this, and it's funny because it's like I said, just the name of the article is just it's what a time to be alive, man. It's what a time to cover the news, because when you thought that things might slow down because Biden is in power, you get headlines like this: first white South Africans flying to the United States under Trump refuge.
Where's Riggs and Murtaugh when you need them?
The first group, guys, of 49 white South Africans to be granted refugee status by the United States is due to arrive shortly after leaving Johannesburg on Sunday. Relations between South Africa and the United States have been tense for months after President Donald Trump said the members of the country's Afrikaner minority, were victims of racial discrimination. This was dismissed by South Africa's Foreign Minister, Ronald Lamola, who said on Monday, there is no persecution of white Afrikaner South Africans, adding the police reports debunk President Trump's assertions. South Africa says that any allegations of persecution would not meet the threshold required under domestic and international refugee law. Okay. First of all, bro. What's crazy is that every time you actually try to ask somebody, okay, so like, what's the racial persecution that you're referring to? No one, I haven't actually been given an answer. Do you know? Do you know?
I could tell you what the denizens of the Exaverse will tell you.
Oh, please.
All right. We've covered a lot of stories that trigger the chuds over the last week or so. We did the Shiloh Hendricks thing. Then as kind of a follow-up, we did the Piers Morgan, brought on that other freak to talk about it.
Yeah, it was bizarre.
We did the statue in Times Square, and we've been on this South African thing since it started. Now, I must say, before the election, they had enough sense to keep the mask on. Generally, they would not come right out and say the shit that they will say now. But with the white South Africans, of all the crazy shit that I've seen these people get behind, this is insane. This is nuts. They will start telling you when you say, well, so you can't really say that the immigration policy is not racist when you guys have been jumping up and down about people coming in and taking your jobs. They're taking our jobs. You've been talking about this. And now all of a sudden you're okay with white South African refugees. And then you push them. They go, but they're bringing skills. Okay, so let me get this straight. What you are fucking telling me is we need to give preferential treatment to white South Africans because unlike South and Central Americans, they're bringing skills in agriculture. You are telling me that the people coming from South and Central America don't know ranching and agriculture, which is essentially what has been propping up those industries in America for decades, because Americans don't even know how to do that shit anymore.
Yeah.
We need those people. These farms depend on people from those countries because they still have, in large swaths of those areas, agrarian ways of life. That's why you need them to come in. So you push them a little bit on that, and they'll say, no, but they have they have land management skills. Oh, you mean so basically you're saying we need to bring in the feudal lord of the manor because they know how to run the peasants? Is that
because they don't a lot of those farms, they might have been owned by the white people, but they weren't ran.
You really think they're hands-on running the farm? That's like the British lord who owns a coffee plantation somewhere that he's probably never set foot on. But that aside, and then once you push them beyond that, then the mask just comes completely off. Well, unlike those people, they have a high IQ and they're not prone to violence. They did
the apartheid, the beneficiaries of apartheid, or at least I don't know if it's them necessarily, but at least their ancestors, they're not prone to violence. Well, then how do they manage to keep apartheid?
That doesn't count.
Because that was why doesn't it count? I'm confused. Why doesn't it?
Because they're white. I mean, now here's what I'm saying.
Because they're white. It's the only reason.
Really, at this point, they don't even hide it anymore. I've never seen so many deeply bigoted people willing to just dispense with the euphemisms. They no longer feel a need to say, no, why are you calling me a bigot? No, they'll just come out and be like, yeah, well, those people are inferior. Which, hey, man, I mean, that's more honest than saying it's about the skill set.
Facts.
I
prefer honesty.
Say what you mean.
Honestly, I prefer honesty because then I know that I don't even have to waste my time having this conversation with you, because there are some people who are just misguided. There are people who believe that undocumented immigrants don't pay taxes. And I'm like, no, they pay billions in taxes, actually. Or some that believe that they commit crimes at higher rates. And it's first of all, logically, that doesn't even flow, because why would I put myself in a situation to be deported when I know that I have a higher opportunity to be deported because of, one, I'm undocumented, and two, if I commit a crime, I go into the system, and basically I'm just leaving it up to fate. That's dumb and also untrue. And so there's people who I've actually been able to convince, but then there's others, the ones that, because at first it was, our problem is that they're undocumented, right? I'm like, okay, so in a case of refugee status, you don't actually need documents to enter the country under refugee status. There's there's a process you can go through to prove that it is legitimate, that you are there for legitimate refugee status. You are a political refugee. The problem is that usually if you're dark brown or black, that shit don't work. And all of a sudden you go from being a refugee to just being undocumented. So there's that. But then there's so whenever I was undocumented versus documented that's a very slippery slope. But I'm like, one, y'all also didn't give a shit whenever y'all found out Elon Musk was undocumented like a motherfucker. He was undocumented as hell. Yeah. Ironically, and he's the one who be raging about undocumented immigrants, which is hilarious. And they're like, well, that's different. Why? Why is it different? Well, he was contributing to society. No, actually, at that point, he was leeching off society. And if anything, since then, he's leached so much off of our society specifically that he became the richest man in the world. I mean,
That man living the undocumented immigrant dream. If any undocumented immigrant is looking at somebody as an inspiration, as what the possibilities are, shit, I could be Elon Musk one day. I could rob the U.S. blind and claim that I'm innovating. Like, let's be real. But then we get to the reality, which is, nah, I ain't gonna lie, it's just that they're not white, so I don't like them. Well, shit, why didn't you start with that? Just start with that, please, because now we can really get to the conversation. It's like, okay, so now my question would be, why? Oh, shared values or whatever bullshit they come up with.
Their culture,
I'm like, okay,
yeah.
That's what
more in
it's
common with us culturally,
Yeah, even though the Afrikaans actually come out and are like, we don't know why we should be treated differently. Well, there are people who say that, like, they don't feel like they should be treated differently because they share a culture with the rest of the South Africans. That's what they believe. They truly believe that. And I'm like, okay, so there isn't a shared culture thing. It's just like they're white, not black. And I do feel like there's this weird fear of like, oh, one day black and brown people are going to outnumber white people in the U.S. They say by 2050. I think that it'll not. I think that's off. I think it's way off, actually. Probably be a lot longer down the line if that does actually happen. But what's interesting, too, is the fact that this isn't the first time in the last, 6 or 7 years that this has happened, right? When the United States started this war in Ukraine, we brought in, since 2022 at least 200,000 Ukrainians, right? And it wasn't just the United States that brought them in, but we passed a special policy that actually expedited the process to allow Ukrainians in. And then Europe was out there doing interviews and saying, well, it's different when we allow Ukrainians in, we're allowing people with shared values. You know, they look like our kids. Yeah. That literally was a comment.
Well, you remember the news reporter who said that.
Yes,
we're not used to seeing this with people who look like us.
They look like us. I'm like, did he just say they look like us? What the fuck? Nobody gonna correct him? He's not gonna correct himself? Okay, well, I'm glad you said it out loud. But the people who rage about immigration, just generally speaking, have had and still continue to have nothing to say about those 200,000 plus Ukrainians, and there are still more that are flowing in. And they make comments about the tax dollars that are going to the Ukraine war, right? Yep. They make comments about the potential loss of life that could happen if we send our troops to Ukraine to help fight this war. They make comments about everything except for the immigration problem that multiple countries are experiencing. And this isn't just a problem this isn't even just a problem in the US. It's happening all over Europe. No one has anything to say. And it's like, guys, I'm starting to recognize a pattern here. Y'all don't have a problem with immigration. Y'all have a problem with immigration from people that don't look like you.
Yeah. Well, and before the election, oh my God, the rending of garments and the beating of the breast if you called them racist. Yeah, I'm not racist. I just think people should wait in line and there should be a legal process. And the second the election was over, they were like, yeah, I'm a racist.
Yeah,
but just straight out.
Hey, get those Venezuelans out of here. I'm like, and send them to El Salvador, a prison in El Salvador.
Look at the crime rates of white people. Like, dude.
It's weird that they go to crime rates.
I've never seen it on this kind of a scale where people are that comfortable coming out and speaking like that. And I must say, in the end, I think this is all an op. I think social media has allowed them to play the oldest trick in the book on the working class at a level that they never could have imagined in bygone eras. That's it, man. They want you fighting about statues in Times Square. They want to desperately want to convince these white working class people who formerly had prosperity in their living memory of their families, unlike non-white people. They actually feel like they lost something that they used to have. They have to give them an explanation for why that is, and they're going to give them the oldest explanation in the book. It's people who are not white. They stole from you. They're taking from you. If you just get rid of them, if you just do something about them, if you just police them, if you control them, if you deport them, your prosperity is going to come back. Meanwhile, if you look at the statistics, black and white average wealth has pretty much stayed the same since the civil rights era. Whites have about 5.5 times more. Since 2008, it's actually jumped. Now whites have about 6.5 times more. Meanwhile, if you look at the upper 1%, so clearly black people didn't steal your wealth, right? They don't have any.
Yeah,
How could they have stolen wealth they don't have?
we're
If
dropping,
you
but we
look
stole
at
your
the
wealth.
top 1%, after 2008, I mean, it was always ridiculous. And it kept going up and up and up from the 70s. Since 2008, spike. They got to do everything they can to make the white working class not look at who actually stole that prosperity from them, and to never think about whose backs that prosperity was built on in the first place.
And it was funny. You think these Afrikaners who are coming here, right? You think they're coming here with no money? Nah, these are the people who inherited apartheid wealth.
Dude, I didn't even know this until this came up. When I found this out, that they still 7% of the population has 93% of the land, I guess I had never really thought about it. I guess I just kind of assumed that there was some kind of redistribution after the fall of apartheid. Like I never looked into it. Honestly, I never looked into it.
I knew. You know why?
In the context of they're talking about being discriminated against, I said, "Are you fucking with me?" They should be happy that they're not being slaughtered in the streets.
Yeah,
like, what are you talking
that's like
about?
and that's a true, bro. So when redlining officially ended, right, which I believe was under the Nixon or right around Nixon time, redlining like never ended, basically. Like, and I'm like, hold up. So this policy that was like nixed, it's still happening? Yeah, it's still happening. Like there are open court cases. Hell, there was one prosecuted very recently within the last like 3 or 4 years. So or the Civil Rights Act, like just because the Civil Rights Act passed doesn't mean that like, racism just kind of stopped. So like in an apartheid country, it would be very difficult to redistribute that wealth in any way that wouldn't get international backlash, the people that deserve it. But there was a situation. So for example, right, I was reading this article about like, let me see how some of these African, like the actual South Africans, feel about what took place. Or what's taking place, because they're in kind of like a weird era. And I feel like white people around the world, and mostly I feel like it's an American thing partially, and definitely a Western European thing, where they believe black people are going to retaliate in a way that they would, and handle situations in a way that they would. So I was reading this article where an African farmer, a black South African farmer, was actually talking about his relationship and his potential partnership with a white African farmer. And he said, basically, so it's legend has it that Bernard Shambangu's grandfather, Bohobo, once speared down a lion and was terrorizing his community. In Mpumalanga, the province in eastern South Africa. The story goes that the lion was so fearsome that even white people who had guns would run away from it. One day, my grandfather is said to have walked up the hill to the lion was roaring with his spear and shield. It says Bernard, the lion charged at him, but my grandfather speared him to death and was made headman for his bravery. As a headman or traditional leader, Boho owned cattle and land. Then one day in the mid 1950s, it was all taken away from him with no compensation, under a law introduced in 1950 called the Group Areas Act. This stated that South Africa's apartheid government could choose certain areas to be used by a single race. Funny enough, I don't actually remember reading anything in the history books about the United States offering refugee status to those people who had their land taken from them, but that's neither here nor there. In the early 1990s, the Democratic South Africans' new constitution allowed for land taken from black farmers to be returned to them. But it did so with great care, and the setting up of new cross-community partnerships were encouraged. In this spirit, when Bernard, now 48, and his community decided to reclaim their land, they agreed to work in partnership with the white farmers who had been working on it. We did not say we want the white folks to leave, said Bernard. They are here. They are working with us. They are supporting us. We are saying that partnership is what is going to take this country forward. This is it's like a complete and total narrative shift from what we're hearing coming out of the Trump administration and what we're seeing on X. And honestly, it's almost a detraction from the narrative from what a lot of people feel like should be happening. Because like you said, these white people are lucky that they shit ain't getting burned down, and the government and the people are not just taking their stuff back forcefully.
Honestly, I was surprised when I heard these numbers. I was shocked by it. Wow. After they took control of the country, they were so decent. I mean, kind. Let me say kind, because if I had to make that decision, that's not the call I would have made in their place. So I don't want to say that's what they should have done. I'm not saying they needed to kill everybody, but yeah, man. Should they have done a land redistribution thing when they came in at the fall of apartheid? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of, as you say, international repercussions that maybe kept them from doing that. They were afraid of what, to get hated if they did that, right?
Yeah.
But you
accountability at least.
I've hardly ever seen people so brainwashed. We got people coming at us when we cover this. Hundreds of white people have been slaughtered. Okay, where can you show me your evidence for that? Like, this is what I mean. This is all a psyop. There was just a study. I'm going to try to cover this week. These scientists are being accused of being unethical, but as always happens when you get these unethical experiments like the Stanford experiment, they wag their finger at them, but then are really interested in the results. Oh, but let's see what you found now that you did it anyway, right?
You already did it, yeah.
So they set AI loose on the internet that could calculate people's sex, their politics, their age. And they found that these AI chatbots were able to convince people of different propositions, ideas, political theories. So, okay, man, if these scientists were able to do this, first of all, the technology is there to do it, and were able to make these findings, all right, they're already way behind what the three-letter agencies are already doing on the internet.
That's true.
That's where a lot of this is coming from. When you see these white people apoplectic about what's going on in a country that I promise you 99.99% of them could not find on a fucking map. Literally. That is a psyop. That is a psyop, man. They've been brainwashed to think that this is something they can invest in. And if they invest in it, and that's what all of this goes back to, you have a society where, largely because of this technology, on the one hand, it's awesome, it enables us to do this. On the other hand, it has really broken down social bonds. So people are looking for the dopamine hit you would get from hanging out with your friends from most of human history, that you would get from interaction, from being in this club. People are not leaving their computer. So where do they find that dopamine hit? By finding something they can signal they believe that people will click like. That's it.
Yep.
They've been reduced to just these rats looking for that dopamine hit from the like, and they get drawn in. And I think partly it's bots convincing them, yeah, the white South Africans are being oppressed. And then you say it and boom.
Bro, bots have like since Trump has came in. I thought bots were bad before, but since Trump and Elon came in, the bots are, I mean, ridiculous. And it's funny because like, if you are online enough, and also if you interact with humans enough, like, generally when it's a bot. Like, I feel like I'm not about to fucking argue with you, dog. You're a bot. Like, I mean, the fact that you have 0 followers, you've only ever replied to people. You came on Twitter, never had an original thought in your life, and you thought, I'm just going to reply to people that I don't like, and exclusively to disagree with them. Right. And it's like the same pattern of disagreement. Like, I hate you, black people. Black people are monkeys. Low IQ. Like, this is okay. This is clearly a bot. And there's other more nuanced bots, but even still, you can see the patterns if you're paying close enough attention. And I noticed, like, I don't know if Elon himself is doing it, but there's probably bots that are dedicated to boosting Elon's posts, because what happens when you boost Elon's posts, the people that make a lot of money off of X, they echo him because it makes them a lot of money. It's like, I can't really see a much clearer conflict of interest than that. And then people they watch those influencers and think like real people actually feel this way in mass. But a lot of times they're convinced that eventually over time by real influencers, because these bots boosted a nonsensical opinion And now
Yep.
those real influencers are economically invested in echoing that opinion. And that's effectively that's why I always say, like, the biggest problem with Trump and why I feel like going for one of the, like I said, Candace Owens might be one of the biggest geniuses in that side of the fence, because she sees where the wind is blowing and decided to jump off the Israel ban. Well, she was already not fucking with Israel, but she jumped off the Trump train. She doesn't exclusively cover Trump. She doesn't defend Trump when he's wrong. She started kind of shifting the topics that she discussed. I would say that her research has taken off. Like, her ability to research is actually way better than what it was whenever she was working with Ben Shapiro. It's probably because out of necessity, but also she sees like where the wind is blowing. And there are some influencers that are seeing where the wind is blowing and doing the same, but then there are others that are digging in, and they're going to regret it. Because, I mean, look at Elon, for example. Elon's about to get kicked out of his own fucking company. And y'all decided to bet on him. And isn't part of the reason he was able to buy Twitter because of Tesla stock? Like, he was able to sell Tesla stocks or some shit.
Yes, and I think Tesla is done as a consumer brand, which doesn't mean he's done because he's got his hand up Trump's ass like that. You don't know what kind of government contracts. He could even get government contracts for Tesla that would save Tesla. As a consumer brand,
he shifted something,
finished.
Apparently. He shifted like most of his stocks and most of his assets into what is it called? It's like basically the AI thing that he's doing, but like he's shifting all, like he's trying to make it itself a brand. I can't remember what it's called. Somebody in the chat remind me.
Well, he's got the Grok on the.
Yeah, it's part of this. It's like all of that. He's trying to move off because he knows, like, especially after that news came about from the first quarter. Not only did Tesla stocks drop, but then we're finding out the rest of the world, especially China. Jesus Christ, those cars in China, boy.
The BYDs,
bro, the BYDs.
Do you have those in Brazil?
Yes, we do. Yeah. The reason I haven't bought a car yet is because the first one I'm buying is a BYD. I'm gonna get the nicest BYD I can get, dog. The first Uber I ever got with a BYD, I was like, what the fuck? What is this? I'm over here leaning back. He's like, oh, this is a BYD. And I'm like, I want to be rude. I usually wouldn't even ask, but like, how much did it cost? And when he told me, I said it was like the equivalent of like 12 or 13,000 American. I said, excuse me, this is nicer than a Tesla. He's like, oh yeah, we don't even have Teslas here, but like, yeah, this is I said, and how do you feel about it? He's like, oh, this is the best investment I've ever made. He said, I just drive Uber because I like driving the car, is what he said. Basically, he doesn't even need to drive the Uber. He said he's a businessman. He's like, but man, I just get to roam around the city. I feel secure. I feel like the GPS is dope. That TV inside. I'm like, dog, this is. And then I started seeing more and more people trading in their nice cars. Like, I live in a nicer area, and people are trading in like their BMWs, their Audis, all that to go get a car that's like half the price here, and like they're upgrading. Yeah, and I'm like, dog. How the hell is Tesla going to survive this? I was thinking it's back then, and everybody knows, if you've been following my channel for a while, bro, I've been like a damn evangelical for BYD since the first time I rode in it. And then when that news came out that BYD outsold Tesla, I said, I told you the revolution was coming. I told you.
Well, and now with, Trump saying the baseline tariff for everyone's going to be 10%. So this country is really just, you think it was bad before? You've created a regime where everything's going to be more expensive than it is in most places. More expensive than it is pretty much. And even if you go to Europe, things are going to be cheaper than they are in the United States, combined with the fact that nobody's going to be coming here no more. The tourism industry is going to be destroyed, completely destroyed. Well, they're going to Asia.
They're going here, bro. You know how many people we had for Carnival? 20 million.
Did it go up? It went up.
20 million people.
Interesting.
Bro, that is a country.
So you're saying they're getting some of that tourism in Brazil?
Yeah, it's because it's because the local countries are coming in mass, but then we're getting so many Europeans and Americans, like more than we've before. It was strictly Americans and people from England. Then like Scottish people, the Irish people started coming, and then Eastern Europeans started coming here. I think that partially is because of the translator. So like because everybody has a translator on their phone now, that makes it a lot easier.
It makes it easier, right?
It makes it a lot easier. But then,
do you speak Portuguese now? Did you learn? Portuguese?
I'm fluent. Yeah, it took about 2 years, but yeah, I'm fluent now. I'm actually I'm thinking about taking a class because I want to actually, so I'm fluent, but like I want to speak more professional, like a presenter. So whenever these elections come around, I'll be able to communicate, as effectively as possible in both Portuguese and English, because these elections are about to be crazy. I'm pretty sure Bolsonaro is about to run again. And I'm not sure. Yeah. And Lula did, because he didn't finish the first term, I think he can run again too.
Okay.
But the party also doesn't like Lula. And he's not doing a good job.
What we've been seeing since Trump came in is that it has not been good for people like Bolsonaro. It's not been good for these right-wing parties. People are getting look at this and saying, I don't want any part of that.
So there's a chance that could be the case. The problem in Brazil is that Lula has actually went back on damn near all of his promises. Anything good, which is not that much stuff, but he did some good things economically. Bolsonaro, Lula basically backtracked or made it more difficult to access. So like even people's benefits are more difficult. They're requiring vaccines in certain instances if you want to continue getting benefits for your kids, or putting them in daycare, things like that. Like not like regular I'm talking about like the COVID vaccine. Or like the polio vaccine, they actually ended up, so you know the one that they administer through the mouth, they actually tried to get that to my son. And I said, when the fuck did y'all start giving polio vaccines to the mouth? They were like, well, this is a recent thing. I said, yeah, no, we're going to wait until y'all get some of them needles back, cuz we're going to wait. And they're like, no, well, he needs to get that. I'm like, well, no, my son's he stays at the house. I work at home. My wife is at home. We're good. And lo and behold, my friend, they had to get rid of those because they were giving polio symptoms to people. And I found out, I said, I know for a fact they bought these motherfuckers from the US, and that's why I'm seeing these commercials everywhere. And lo and behold, they bought almost all the new vaccines they're administering recently were bought from the US directly into Lula. So, and people are beginning to find this out because social media is connecting in a way that they weren't connected before. And they're like, is Lula like, I mean, yeah, Bolsonaro's kind of racist, but like, once again, we're kind of just, as an American, you're just, I assume my president is going to be racist until otherwise proven. Like, I'm not confident Obama wasn't racist. I'm just confident that he's a black guy. You know, he's from Africa. So like, it doesn't mean you like black people. It just means you're from Africa and you just happen to be president. But like, it's hard for me to say what's going to happen next because Lula's party doesn't like him. He's let a lot of people down. Bolsonaro, they have these candidates called Bolsonaristas. Basically, they're people who ran as Bolsonaro type candidates, and they won all over the country because people were so pissed at being let down by Lula. It's kind of like that effect that you saw with people being let down by Biden. Right. So it's like not that they're voting for Lula. If they're not that they're voting for Bolsonaro again, it would be like they're voting against Lula.
Against Lula. All right.
Exactly. So but in the same vein, I feel like that would be the last election.
Expected, like in Canada, and it didn't happen because of Trump. It was expected in Australia, and it didn't happen because of Trump.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it's true. I guess. Yeah, and it's a multi-party system here too. So, and there might be a new party by the time this is all said and done, depending on what happened with Lula. It's like I said, this is going to be one of the most interesting elections in Brazil's history.
When is
because it's 2026.
Okay.
So, and it's going to be interesting because you got to remember too, Bolsonaro almost won again. He barely lost. And the reason that they put Lula out there was because Lula was so popular before he got arrested that like they were like, man, there's no one else who could even come close to touching Bolsonaro because despite his problematic statements, he just like has certain parts of the country on lock. And Lula's the only one that could bring some of those people back over because of the promises that he had made the first term. But
Right,
like he was
right.
supposed to decriminalize weed, never happened.
Mhm.
If I would make an argument that has actually gotten worse, he was supposed to reduce the government spending and then use the money that there is there to invest in people in the small businesses. Has not happened. It's actually become more difficult. I mean, they're still doing the raids to the favelas, and it's clear that the cops are still heavily involved with the corruption. They're like, bro, they're doing these raids, and if you look at the news and these fucking guns, dog, I'm like, these guns are brand spanking new. Like these guns, I'm like, these are police guns. These are police weapons. There's no fucking way they got these. Like, there's no, because it's so, bro, it's so, I can't even get an iPhone through customs without having to pay the price. Like, you got to pay like damn near double what the phone is worth to get that shit through customs. And these people somehow got AKs and ARs and shit. Come on, bro. Like, nah, I'm not. So I want us to really quick run this clip by you from Bill Maher before we get you up out of here, because it's one of those just Bill Maher rants where Bill Maher is pretending to, I don't even know how to describe this dude, bro. He just gets on my fucking nerves, bro. He really does. Because when he talks, first of all, he talks like his writers aren't writing for him and his opinions are original. And then when he gives an original opinion, you know it's his. Because it's horrible.
It's the worst part. Yeah.
It's like the worst part, right? Like, you know, it's like when he tries to go off script a little bit and try to be a little bit edgy, it's like, oh God, no, just stick to the script.
Their young people, their key constituency, not only don't like their own civilization, they like the wrong one. They actually think Hamas is a liberation movement. They chant for the Houthis. They're chanting, we will honor our martyrs at Yale. They're looking for love in all the wrong countries. Someone needs to tell the kids that America is not the society.
He was waiting for more laughs. It didn't go the way he thought it was.
He thought that one was going to kill. That was on the jukebox all the time when I was 13.
Yeah,
where
bro.
women basically have no rights, where there's zero freedom of religion, and where dissent is punishable by death. But we still have elections. They don't.
Do we?
And yet at Coachella this year, when an Irish rap group projected onto screens, "Fuck Israel, free Palestine," got big applause. "Globalize the Intifada" is the catchphrase that's really catching on these days, as if worldwide suicide bombing and cosplaying Islamic revolutionaries is the answer to our problems.
Tell me you don't know what Intifada means without telling me you don't know what Intifada means.
At an AOC Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho last month, someone threw a Palestinian flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young, loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is.
Oh, my God. Wow.
I don't even know where to start. I'll let you go ahead and take it away. Because bro. Bro.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So, I mean, Bill Maher, this has been his go-to. Generation bashing has been his go-to for a very long time. And he's probably the clearest example of somebody who very disingenuously took critiques of, you know, a kind of shallow representation of identity politics that I'm also critical of. I think most people are. And after October 7th, tried to lump being anti-Zionist in with that as being woke. It's woke to be pro-Palestine, when actually it's quite the opposite, and that's very obvious. Everything that Bill Maher and people of his ilk, like Konstantin Kassin, would exoriate people for and call woke if it represented any other group claiming special privileges and special oppression and a need for special protections. They built entire careers on criticizing that way of thinking. But this one group is the wokest woke group in woke land. And you parrot all those talking points with this one thing, with this one country, that they need to be protected from speech, They need to be protected from debate. We need to crack down on people expressing opinions about it. They need to have protected status in universities. We need to uniquely persecute people. They need the whole country is a fucking safe space. The whole country is the ultimate safe space. They were so critical of this until October 7th. And then October 8th, we saw these people really were. I went to, I got a press pass to go to Dissident Dialogues, which is something that the Trigonometry guys set up. And it was all these intellectual dark web people. It was Richard Dawkins. It was McWhorter. And it was very eye-opening for me because this is at the height of the Columbia protests. This was like last May. And the only people who had anything supportive to say about the protests, which were very current at that moment. And this is a free speech conference. It's the intellectual dark web. These are the free thinkers. Lee Fong was there. Yeah, exactly. Lee Fong, Schellenberger, who did not make that part of his remarks, but he was kind enough to give me an interview on the side where he was, frankly, like, it's a mistake for them not to support that. So good on him. And Brianna Joy Gray, who they specifically brought in to debate the Zionists.
I'm sure that did not go well for them.
It was really ugly. It was really, but no, that became a pretty infamous thing because Cassine accused her of being unprofessional. And I actually had video that they had never released of what went on because they said she threw the mic. And I actually jumped into that on X because there was a whole thing going on where Cassine was accusing her of throwing the mic and crying. And I was able to show, no, she didn't throw the mic. She placed it on the chair, got up, walked, exited. But no, I mean, the room was like a bunch of howling jackals, just a bunch of freaks, man. I mean, there was a woman sitting next to me because she assumed nobody who's not thinking like that would have gotten a press pass to be there. Surprise. And she's sitting next to me. God, I hate her. She's so smug. Like I'm gonna be like, yeah, that Brianna.
Which is weird because like Brianna's the total opposite of that. It's so weird when people put these like labels on her that don't fit her at all. Like, oh, she's rude. Oh, she's unprofessional. No, Brianna is actually the total opposite. Like she goes out of her way to be the complete opposite because she knows if she slips up even a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Like she rolled her eyes and got fired.
Yep. No, like, I mean, they were really, in a way, looking back now, that room and the crowd there and the way they reacted to her, that was a prelude to what I'm seeing now post-election, now that they feel confident. Now the mask is completely off. And they could just be like, yeah, we need the white South Africans. Like it was kind of a prelude to that. But what was most shocking to me was you had all these figures who presented themselves, as, Douglas Murray wasn't there, but they were all of that ilk, as these free thinkers. There was a lot about foreign policy there, and there was nothing at that conference that could not have come off Anthony Blinken's desk. There was a whole thing about how your food might be made by Uyghur slave labor. There was a lot of stuff attacking Iran.
Wow.
Not a word.
It's so crazy to me how all of a sudden conservatives love, bro. The Uyghur situation is hilarious when it comes to conservatives because they don't give a shit about minorities or slave labor until it's time to criticize.
Slave labor here.
Yeah,
we literally have prisoners at Angola working on an old plantation, doing the same kind of work. And that is throughout our supply chain from McDonald's to Target. You have stuff made by prison labor right here.
Or Alabama, who's denying people's parole or forcing them to stay longer sentences because they're literally working at McDonald's, like for free.
Oh yeah.
After they were promised if they do the work, their sentences will be reduced, by the way. So we have slave labor here. We have slave labor in Africa. But all those Uyghurs, if we get a chance to own the Chinese, then that's all. And I'm like, y'all going to own them with a whole lie? Like, that's been disproven and debunked over and over and over again. I feel like what's interesting about the way that Bill ended it, he's like, we got to stop letting them, this isn't a sign of freedom. This is like, what the fuck? Hold on. You just gave a whole speech about how pro-Israel, being anti-Israel is a problem, being pro-Palestine is a problem, pro-Intifada, pro-Houthis, but somehow you end with an American flag.
Yeah.
You notice you could not put, at least legitimately and justifiably, that the Israeli flag is a sign of freedom. Why not? But there's probably a couple reasons. It's, the whole apartheid genocide thing. But then there's, if you put the Israeli flag in that particular case as the sign of freedom, then it would be too much. It would be too on the nose that you are doing this to protect Zionists and Zionism. So you try to loosely link freedom, America, and Israel and Zionism together. They try to tie them all together at the end. But it actually, when you think about it, didn't make any fucking sense based off of what he was saying in the monologue.
Well, and for somebody like Bill Maher to be running around claiming that America represents freedom, people who have never really traveled outside of this country, who have been brainwashed into thinking they have it good here, have an excuse. Maher's a rich dude, man. He's been all over the world. He knows better, or he should know better. He should know better. I understand this country's been very good to him. I think there's probably a lot of willful ignorance there.
For sure.
Sure. But if your job is to do social and political commentary, maybe you have a responsibility to think a little more deeply than rah America, home of the brave, freedom. What? You can't read an economic chart. You can't see how this country is a shithole for the vast, vast, vast majority of people who live here by comparison to any other country in its economic and industrial class. You talk about politics for a living, you don't know that, or you do know that, and you just don't want to factor that in to the way you talk about these things, because that's going to make you sound a little too radical to get invited to the right parties, which you already have a hard time getting invited to because you're such a notorious asshole.
Yeah. It's, and also I think that
you know how much of an
idiot.
asshole Maher is? His agent fired him by not inviting him to his party.
Shit! I didn't know that.
His agent, his agent did not invite Maher to the party, so Maher fired the agent. Which you got to assume that was the agent's way of getting rid of Bill Maher. He didn't invite him to his big holiday party. How much of an asshole do you have to be for your agent to get rid of you like that?
Because your agent knew you're such an asshole that if I don't invite you to my party, you're gonna fire me. That's what's crazy. Oh man, what's funny, Bill Maher, bro, I actually believe that he's an idiot. I know some people think that some of it is willful ignorance. When he pretends the majority of Americans are living in this level of prosperity that Bill Maher has managed to attain. Once again, not by any effort of his own necessarily, because I cannot stress enough, he has writers. Whenever the writers went on strike, people tend to forget, Bill Maher's ass had to take a vacation.
Oh, yeah.
He had, boy, that shit was revealing. It was very revealing whenever I'm like, hold up, where is Bill Maher? Somebody said, yeah, man, his writers are on strike. Okay, so where's Bill Maher? Oh, he can't do his show.
Right.
Why? Because his writers, I'm like, there's somebody responsible for writing this garbage? And it's also, Bill Maher can't write his own show? You just get back in the lab, bro. Just do what you did to get where you're at. Oh, you didn't do anything to get where you're at. Everybody has been carrying you, and they thought that you had the personality to be the face of this machine that is pushing you. That's basically it. Because if you ever ask Bill Maher a question that requires any level of depth, his face, his face and his responses tell you, oh shit, he does not know anything about this topic actually. Because what he'll do is he'll ask you, he'll respond to you by asking you a question about why you feel that way you do about that topic.
Well, you want to see a big Bill Maher mask off moment. He had Thomas Frank on after Thomas Frank wrote Listen Liberal. And it was going into the 2016 or 2020 election. I can't remember which. And probably 2020. And Thomas Frank started talking about the thesis of Listen Liberal, which is, hey, man, what's the matter with Kansas covered the Republican Party? This is about the contribution of the Democratic Party to what's destroyed the country economically. And every time he started trying to talk, once Bill Maher, he clearly, of course, he didn't read the book. He didn't really know what it was going to be. He probably liked him from What's the Matter with Kansas and just figured he'd get some boilerplate Republican bashing. And when Thomas Frank started laying out his critique of Clinton and Obama, you're the kind of liberal that when you start talking, people's eyes just glaze over. Like he just started talking over Thomas Frank.
What?
And not letting him get his points out once he realized what Frank was going to say.
You'll get me fired, bro. Shut the fuck up.
And shooting him down. Yeah, no, he just would not let him present himself. And when he got in a word, Maher would just shoot him down and minimize him.
Even though the point of that interview was to discuss the book, right?
Which clearly he did not understand what the book was. And once he did, he was like, no, I'm not going to get the backlash from the liberal class on this guest.
What's hilarious about that is once again, there is a process, y'all, that goes into booking an interview. There's the topic that's being discussed. Even like I said, the writers that apparently they set this man up to fail because to write for him about that particular topic, somebody had to read the book. And it was it's basically no one, either they set him up to fail.
Not necessarily, man. You could have had the booking person just knew of What's the Matter with Kansas. This is the Thomas Frank that wrote What's the Matter with Kansas. The libs loved Thomas Frank when he wrote What's the Matter with Kansas. So they probably did not read it. Look,
nobody.
I'd say the booking agent probably just assumed it was going to be What's the Matter with Kansas, or they wouldn't have booked him.
Yeah, and there's so much pressure to just get somebody to get on the show every week. It's maybe it was one of those situations where he just slipped in there and he probably didn't even you're gonna let me talk shit about liberals? Okay, because now
there's a lot of nepotism in Hollywood, man. There's a lot of incompetent people
that is
working
true
there.
Because now he can get away with talking about liberals because he doesn't call them liberals. He just talks about left. He calls the liberals left.
He talks about the woke thing. If Thomas Frank had come on there and started exoriating the Democrats for being too woke, Maher would have been okay with that. Frank's critique is an economic and class critique. And
it's the worst. That's the worst critique you can make.
That's verboten. That's verboten.
Yeah.
You can't actually have a real conversation about real things that affect real people. You got to be arguing about who gets to use what bathroom. That is ground that Bill Maher is very comfortable on. Once you start getting into the real shit, he had to shut him down. That's what I'm saying. Look that up. It's very revealing, man. Once he realized where he was going, he would not let him speak.
I feel like that was part of the reason why he stopped doing those interviews. He was doing those one-on-one interviews for a while, and he stopped that because people would challenge him. And he came out looking stupider and stupider every single interview. I'm like, holy shit, Bill Maher is an idiot. I thought this was willful ignorance. No, he's a dumbass. That explains so much. And you realize that about some people, with Marco Rubio, when he came out and was yo, man, this is a multipolar world and we need to actually make peace with China as much as possible, at least within our self-interest. But we damn sure don't need to go to war with them or Iran. And I realized after I became Secretary of State and read these documents that most of the people making policy decisions don't know what they're talking about. They're not experts. I say, oh shit, Marco Rubio is actually, did he not know? So he's been advocating for all these foreign policy decisions and he actually didn't know, which was a huge revelation because I thought I was under the genuine impression that it was willful ignorance and he was doing what he was told to do, and which is partially true, obviously. But I thought it was because that's what he believed in wholeheartedly. And he just also didn't give a damn as long as he was getting, paid. No, it's oh no, you thought that this was what was best and it just so happened to align with your beliefs. But then when you got the news, oh no, you got the information what it really is, you flipped your tune. And then, bro, I don't know if you noticed, they sidelined Marco Rubio after he came out and admitted that we're living in a multipolar world and we need to do whatever we can to not go to war with Iran and China. They sidelined him. almost all of a sudden he went from being like the guy that the go-to guy. Marco Rubio's going to handle this. State Department's going to handle this. Everybody was cheering him on, and then like after he said that and gave that interview, they were like, "Yeah, nah, bro, you can't be saying shit like that. You can't."
Well,
be.
if you look,
now you're
if you look
everybody.
at the budget proposal, it almost eliminates the State Department.
Which is the opposite of what was supposed to happen.
Yeah. It's like guts the State Department programs.
It was supposed to be like handing everything over to Rubio for him to run. Like basically, when they were like, "Oh, they're getting rid of USAID," and that was never really the case. It was supposed to be handed over to Marco Rubio. Like even that seems to be out the window. They haven't talked about it since, and we don't really know what's happening with it because after Rubio gave that interview, and I'm sure that he said some things behind closed doors that made Trump be like, "Hey man," or I'm not even gonna say Trump because that would be assuming Trump is running the show. So I'm not even gonna say Trump, but somebody, whoever's really moving, moving these levers of power, had to remove him from the picture. I mean, hell, even when Nicole, what's her name, Nicole Shanahan, the VP pick for RFK Jr., she came out recently and was like, "Yeah, I don't know who the hell is giving RFK Jr. orders because it's not him. The stuff that he's saying isn't him. After the conversations I've had, it's clear that it's not him making the decisions." And like basically went on that rant on Twitter, explaining like I was giving all these promises and assurances, and like based off the conversation we had, they're not being honored because someone else is making decisions for him. Which is like, I could have told you that, but somebody's been making decisions for RFK Jr. since before, like since he announced he's going to go independent. Basically, like I know that for a fact.
Hang on. You're telling me that the guy who the bear murderer who basically fucked every woman who ever walked into a room with him, who is also a virulent Zionist, is being maybe controlled by
right?
a country that is infamous for its blackmail materials? You're kidding me, right?
The dude was like, we asked about the babysitter situation, and he's like, "I wasn't a church boy.
I wasn't a church boy." Yeah.
That's not the answer we wanted to hear on that one. I need you to be a little bit more clear, bro. I'm not asking if you was a church boy. We're asking about sexual assault here, bro. There's an in between. Okay, you got some of these super chats. We'll get you out of here, man. Us white people have Neanderthal blood. Every day is a wild shit. Boy. Do they know what a woman is in Brazil? Boy, what you mean? This is Brazil.
I think that's a Matt. He means that in a Matt Walsh kind of spirit. What is a woman? What is a woman?
Oh man, this man, Matt Walsh is also a fucking idiot. I'm not gonna get into that. Sparky, thank you for the super chat. Russell, be sure and commend Niko for stepping up and raising Pasta's child as his own. I'm glad to see Niko's man, it's just such a joke about Pasta because Pasta, bro, I promise you, if he could have done so, Pasta would be married in Brazil right now, living in Sao Paulo. I promise you he would.
Why can't he?
Because he works out of he goes to New York sometimes, and he was taking care of his mom at the time.
Right.
Yeah, it was just way too much.
Right.
But he met. Right. I could say I got it on good word, and because I was there. He met a young Brazilian woman out here at a wedding of our friends. Actually, while we were here working, we also went to yeah, man. Look, he almost didn't make it. He was almost like me, stuck. Stuck exactly where he wants to be at. Joseph George, thank you very much for the super chat. NATO meeting in Dayton later this month. Protests are planned. Dayton, Ohio? Dayton's in Ohio, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're meeting in Dayton, Ohio. That's a random ass fucking place to meet.
They'll never find us there.
Yeah. Bro, that's crazy. Sparky, keep in mind, Israel has killed many more Americans than Iran. Remember the USS later. Yeah, I mean, shit. Yep. You don't even got to go back that far. You can go back the last 20 years. Israel's killed more Americans than Iran has. Shoot. And it's also super weird because the terrorists that the U.S. sponsored have also killed more Americans than they've killed Israelis for some reason. But Israel swears up and down that terrorist organizations all over the Middle East are planning on destroying them. That's a different conversation for a different day. We're still trying to figure out when they're going there. Because their go-to is Hezbollah, which is actually just that's like a political party. I don't know why everybody's like, we're going to destroy Hezbollah. And I'm like, you never going to really end the war then, because that's a political party. That's literally a political organization. Y'all just keep calling them, like you keep referring to them as if it's just a militant group. It's like they got elections and shit, bro. Like they won their elections. So yeah, but that's what they do. It's on purpose. It's because you can never really beat them.
Right.
So you
Well,
can
it's about ending the Palestinians is what it's about.
Exactly. So but let everybody know where they can find you at, Russ.
You can find me at Due Dissidence. We are on Sunday nights, Tuesday, 7:00 Eastern time, Tuesdays at 2, and Thursdays we do our special show for our friends overseas, noon Eastern time. And if you're in the Buffalo area, I will probably be hanging out at Nietzsche's tonight doing some open mic poetry.
Oh, dope, man. It's a man of many talents. I like that. Good stuff, man. I appreciate you coming on the show, bro. And I love what you guys doing over there at Due Dissidence.
Thanks for having me on, Niko.
Of course, man. For everybody else, thank you all so much for tuning in to this live stream segment of For the People podcast. Make sure I like this show, share, like, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Real Niko House. Niko with a K, for the love of God, for all you C people out there. Niko with a K. Follow me on Instagram, Real Niko House, and on TikTok as well at Real Niko House. You can support the show by obviously donating through Super Chat, becoming a patron through Patreon, or becoming a premium subscriber. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.